Hello. Right. Good morning again, everybody. I'm very grateful to Tony for taking such a global and broad perspective because it's enabled me to appear to have deliberately chosen a very different approach. But it's coincidence rather than a plan, I'm afraid. I want to take a very personal view. So although I'm here in part as a representative of the Chartered Institute of Public Relations in the UK, the points I'm going to make now are very personal rather than official. I'd like to thank you for giving me the opportunity of taking this fresh perspective. And what I'm going to do is spend most of my allotted time telling you the conclusions that I've reached. And then I shall spend a very small amount of time just pointing to some of the evidence which is on my slides. We talked about the weather earlier on. I think that what I'm trying to, my analogy is an ice cream. That's not to say that the room is very cold or that it's rather cool. But my analogy is an ice cream, and I want to spend most of my time talking about the flavour of the ice cream. And then very briefly, I will give you the recipe, which are my slides. And that will enable you to try and recreate the ice cream if you like the taste. Okay. I'm going to argue the following. I'm going to argue that reputation management and relationship management are one and the same thing. I'm then going to argue that this enables public relations to claim a major role in reputation management. And finally, I'm going to argue that if we do this, if we consider reputation management as relationship management, then we can find a fresh and different way of measuring our effectiveness in managing reputation. So that's my thesis. The first point I want to make is that reputation and relationship management are the same thing, or if not the same thing, very closely linked. So this has a number of benefits. The first benefit is that it enables us to, or enables me, to match the CIPR's definition of public relations, which is about reputation, what we say about ourselves and what others say about us. So it enables me to match the CIPR definition with what I think is the major technical or tactical role of public relations, which is third-party endorsement. People I admire are those people who are able to summarize very complex topics in very simple phrases. And I shall give you an example from Peter Gummer, who you may not have heard of, but is probably the most experienced consultancy practitioner in the West. And talking to a group of young people some time ago, he defined public relations consultancy, but it applies across the board. He defined public relations consultancy as getting people to say nice things about our clients. And even then I remember thinking, I wish I'd said that. It just seems to encapsulate what we're talking about. So, going back to the CIPR definition of public relations being in part about managing what others say about you, linking in with third-party endorsement, it seems to place reputation management at the heart of public relations practice. Moving on to looking at a more strategic level, then public relations is, at least in part, about managing relationship with stakeholders. And I think the management of our relationships with stakeholders is very much aligned with reputation management for two reasons. First of all, we want stakeholders to have a positive view of us, but also stakeholders are going to be very important in terms of influencing other people's view of our reputation. A small example. I spend a lot of time, unfortunately, traveling on low-cost airlines. When you travel on the low-cost airlines and you check in, you are not dealing with the airline staff, you are dealing with a handling agent. But that's transparent to you. So the relationship that the low-cost airline has with its handling agent is a very important part of it managing its reputation, because its handling agent is dealing directly with its customers. So, if we can position reputation management as being about stakeholder relationships, then it puts public relations in as a lead or an important part of the whole process. Final point I want to make, or the final part of my conclusion, is that this opens up an interesting way of evaluating, measuring what we do, which is an important part of what I'm talking about. Because I shall try and briefly mention that I think that there are hurdles associated with our current approach to evaluation. And I'm a little bit of a coward. It's what in English jargon I would call a wimp, and I apologise if wimp is not translatable, but I think you can understand from the sound of the word wimp that it's not very positive. So I'm a bit of a wimp. And I'll give you an example. I spend a lot of time on my bicycle. And when I come to a steep hill, rather than going up the steep hill, I always try and find a way around it. And so this is happening with my looking at evaluation. I think there's a hurdle which is difficult, if not impossible, but difficult to overcome. So I'm looking for a way around it. And there's some work that I will point you towards that was done over 10 years ago now on measuring relationships. So that if we can say that reputation management is relationship management, then we can measure and evaluate our effectiveness at reputation management by measuring and evaluating the relationships we have with key stakeholders. And that evaluation is a form of goal-free, objective-free evaluation, and overcomes what I see as one of the major hurdles to evaluation.